Have you ever met someone who seems to understand everything instantly? Someone who can solve complex problems in their head while the rest of us are still reading the question? You might assume their life is just easier, that they've got it all figured out, that intelligence is basically the golden ticket to everything. But here's the thing that most people get completely wrong. Being exceptionally intelligent, I'm talking about the people in that rarefied air of extremely high IQ, doesn't actually work the way we think it does. In fact, it often comes with a unique set of psychological challenges that nobody really talks about. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine your brain is like a Ferrari engine. Most of us are driving regular cars, and that's perfectly fine. We get where we need to go, we understand the rules of the road, we connect with other drivers. But what happens when you're someone whose brain is essentially souped up, turbocharged, processing information at speeds that aren't quite like everyone else? You're still driving on the same roads, you're still following the same rules, but you're experiencing everything differently. And honestly, that's where things get complicated. The research on extremely high IQ individuals, we're talking about people in the 99th percentile, those with IQs above 160 or so, reveals something psychologists call the asynchrony problem. Essentially, their intellectual development races ahead, while their emotional and social development moves at the same pace as everyone else's. It's like having the mind of a 40-year-old chess grandmaster trapped in a teenager's body, uncertain about how to navigate friendships and social hierarchies. This mismatch creates a specific kind of loneliness that's hard to explain to people who haven't experienced it. One of the most fascinating psychological patterns I've observed in research about gifted individuals is what researchers call existential depression, or philosophical melancholia. When your mind can process information and see patterns that others miss, you naturally begin questioning things more deeply. You see the contradictions in society, the irrationality of human behavior, the fundamental uncertainties in existence itself. While others might be content with surface-level explanations, your brain is already 3 steps ahead, interrogating the logic behind everything. This can lead to a kind of chronic dissatisfaction, not because you're ungrateful, but because you're always aware of how things could be different, better, more logical. It's exhausting, actually. Imagine never being able to turn off that part of your brain that's constantly analyzing, deconstructing, questioning. There's also something really important about how society treats intelligence. We've built this narrative where high IQ is supposed to equal success, happiness, and effortless achievement. But the psychological reality is messier. Some of the most brilliant people struggle with what psychologists call perfectionism paralysis. Because they can see all the possibilities, all the ways something could be done better or more completely, they sometimes struggle to actually finish anything. There's this internal debate happening constantly. Is this good enough? Have I considered all the angles? What if I'm missing something? It can be genuinely paralyzing. I know highly intelligent people who are procrastinators, not because they're lazy, but because their minds are caught in this loop of endless optimization and revision. Another psychological challenge that's less talked about is what I'd call the expectation burden. When you're identified as smart from a young age, and usually you are because it's so obvious, everyone projects their hopes onto you. Parents expect you to be the one who makes it. Teachers expect you to solve the hard problems. Peers expect you to have all the answers. And over time, you internalize this. You start believing that your worth is tied to your intellectual output. If you're not constantly producing brilliant work or breakthrough insights, you feel like you're failing. That's a lot of psychological pressure, and it can lead to anxiety, depression, and a fragile sense of self-worth that's entirely contingent on performance. What's also interesting is the social dimension, because intelligence isn't just about raw processing power, it's also about pattern recognition and the ability to predict social dynamics. Many extremely gifted people find themselves thinking several moves ahead in conversations. They can see where someone's argument is going before the person finishes making it. They anticipate emotional reactions. They understand social hierarchies and political dynamics with an almost unsettling clarity. But here's the paradox. This ability can actually make authentic connection harder. How do you genuinely listen to someone when your brain has already mapped out the entire trajectory of the conversation? How do you have a real emotional moment when you're simultaneously analyzing it? Some extremely intelligent people describe feeling like they're always observing their own lives rather than living them. There's also a phenomenon that psychologists have started researching more seriously called MultiPotentialite Syndrome. Brilliant minds often don't just excel at one thing, they're genuinely interested in everything. They could be an exceptional musician, a brilliant mathematician, a natural athlete, and a compelling writer all at once. And while this sounds wonderful, it creates a genuine psychological dilemma. How do you choose? When you can succeed at virtually anything, how do you commit to one path? This can lead to a kind of existential drift, where the person jumps from field to field, never quite settling, never fully developing mastery in one area, because there's always something else equally compelling pulling their attention. The psychological toll of that perpetual optionality can actually be significant. But here's where it gets more hopeful. And I think this is important to understand. Many extremely intelligent people develop what psychologists call cognitive humility. They become acutely aware of how much they don't know. The more they learn, the more they realize the vastness of their ignorance. This can actually be liberating. It pushes them away from arrogance and toward genuine curiosity and collaboration. Some of the most interesting people I've learned about are those who've managed to channel their intensity into something meaningful. Not because they're performing for an audience, but because they found a way to translate their internal landscape into something that connects with others. The key psychological shift that seems to separate struggling, highly intelligent people from thriving ones is this. They learn to value different kinds of intelligence. They realize that emotional intelligence, social intelligence, creativity, and wisdom aren't separate from raw processing power. They're equally important and equally complex. They stop seeing their intelligence as their identity and start seeing it as just one part of who they are. They develop something psychologists call wise intelligence, the ability to recognize when logic isn't enough, when other perspectives matter more than being right, and when vulnerability is actually the smartest move. If you have a very high IQ or know someone who does, understand this. Your inner world is real. The loneliness isn't weakness. The constant questioning isn't just overthinking, it's a mind searching for deeper truth. Struggling to connect doesn't mean something is wrong. It often means you experience life on a different wavelength. But here's the truth. Intelligence alone won't fulfill you. It won't guarantee meaning or happiness. What truly matters is blending intellect with empathy, curiosity, and connection. The deepest human experiences, love, creativity, purpose, go beyond raw thinking. Your intelligence is a gift, but so is your ability to feel, grow, and connect. Thanks for watching.